The White House now all but admits that there will be another attack on American troops in Afghanistan, but say there isn't much they can do about it to stop such an attack except work with the Taliban. Good evening, I'm Leland Vittert. The more we learn about the Biden administration's policy in Afghanistan, the clearer it becomes that everything, including our troops' safety, rests on trusting the Taliban. The White House says President Biden will stick to his deadline of withdrawing all U.S. forces by August 31st, even though they will likely leave American citizens behind.
Is the U.S. guaranteeing that you will be able to get out?
I don't think we can guarantee.
Tonight, there are serious questions about whether the Taliban and ISIS-K really are our arch enemies, as the White House claims. New evidence suggests they may not be. ISIS-K now has thousands of soldiers, many released from prison when the Afghan government fell. What threat do they pose to the homeland as we approach the anniversary of 9/11? We'll talk about that. Also tonight, we are learning more, as Joe said, about the 12 Marines and one Navy corpsman who died yesterday, and what the Pentagon now describes as a single suicide bombing with a follow-up attack by ISIS gunmen. Today, Jen Psaki clarified the president's stance on the group that killed these brave Americans.
I think he made clear yesterday that he does not want them to live on the earth anymore.
All right, as we move on, the next 96 hours or so are going to be some of the most dangerous in America's 20-year war with the Taliban. Kelly Meyer is in Washington tonight with what the Pentagon is preparing for. Kelly, good evening.
Good evening, Leland. Well, right now there are 5,000 U.S. troops on the ground in Afghanistan, and the Pentagon is saying they are basically waiting for the next terrorist attack to happen, saying there are, quote, specific, credible threats. The president was told by his national security team today they are heading into the most dangerous part of the mission, as you mentioned. But the Pentagon and the president are moving forward with evacuations this weekend. I asked Pentagon spokesman John Kirby about the ongoing safety of those evacuees and U.S. troops.
Mr. Kirby, you said that lives are the priority. So my question is pretty straightforward. Should the U.S. or should Americans expect more U.S. casualties in the next few days?
We obviously don't want to see any more casualties. That's why we are monitoring the threat streams very closely and taking what we believe are the best possible steps to prevent another tragedy like this from happening.
And Leland, Kirby told me the defense secretary is keeping force protection a top priority. But as we head into what the president, again, is calling the most dangerous part of the mission, we just don't know for certain that there won't be any more deaths. Leland?
And saying there likely is going to be another attack. They say that force protection is a priority and they're doing everything they can and they're monitoring every threat stream they can. But were they not monitoring threat streams and force protection issues yesterday when 13 Americans were killed?
Yeah, Leland, the Pentagon really didn't have any answers today on what went wrong. All they told us was that there weren't two explosions as they had originally reported, just the initial one at the Kabul gate. Kirby says they are focusing on threats moving forward, which he says they are prepared for despite the failure to protect U.S. troops during Thursday's attack.
All of that effort, and there was a lot of effort, clearly fell short in some way because this attack was able to be perpetrated, and we did suffer, as well as our Afghan friends suffered casualties.
And Kirby says they're still trying to figure out what went wrong, but he also says information is going to be limited as they head into the final weekend as the security threat continues to increase. Leland?
Feels like it's going to be a very long weekend for those at the Pentagon, even longer for those in Afghanistan. Kelly, thank you very much. Other than the Taliban, what protection do U.S. troops on the ground in Kabul have? For that, we bring in retired Major General Vincent Bowles, who served in both Iraq and Afghanistan. General, we appreciate you being with us. Losing a war is never elegant. It seems as though withdrawing from one when you're relying on a terrorist organization is even harder.
We are engaged right now in the toughest tactical challenge you can get involved with, trying to withdraw contact while you're under pressure from an enemy that's right there in your face. The Air Force normally likes a 10-mile secure zone around an airfield. we don't have a 1 mile secure zone. So this is the most challenging environment and most challenging effort for those troops on the ground.
It's terrifying. As tragic as yesterday was, seems as though the worst case scenario would be the shooting down of an American C-17 or another U.S. military aircraft. And I'm wondering, with the situation as dire as you describe it, why do you think somebody hasn't taken that shot yet?
A couple of reasons. One is they may not have the capability. Also, additionally, we've got some pretty significant capability in the aircraft that we have ourselves, chaff and things of that nature, that if we detect something like that coming, we should be able to shoot those flares out and be able to misdirect the rocket if we can do that.
I've spent a lot of time with our men and women overseas and then also reported from Washington and at the Pentagon. I've never really seen the kind of anger inside our armed forces that we are seeing and hearing right now. This is from a lieutenant colonel currently serving, Stuart Scheller, who admitted he's putting his career on the line. He was just fired within hours of posting this video. Take a listen.
I'm not saying we've got to be in Afghanistan forever, but I am saying, did any of you throw your rank on the table and say, hey, it's a bad idea to evacuate Bagram Airfield, a strategic air base, before we evacuate everyone? Did anyone do that? And when you didn't think to do that, did anyone raise their hand and say, we completely messed this up?
Have we ever been at a time like this since Vietnam?
We've always had times where people have wondered if we're doing the right thing. What the lieutenant colonel did there, unfortunately, because he went so public, and we have that now common in the social media, is he generated more heat than light. Didn't solve anything, did highlight an issue. It's an issue that many of us have been talking about. What's the reason Bagram Air Base was closed? And the reason was because we couldn't keep it secure in the environment that we were in.
Well, it seems though we're not going to be able to do a lot of things. President Biden then says, don't worry, we've got this over-the-horizon capability. Take a listen.
Mm-hmm.
Terrorism is metastasized around the world. We have greater threats coming out of other countries, a heck of a lot closer to the United States. We don't have military encampments there. We don't keep people there. We have over-the-horizon capability to keep them from going after us.
30 seconds. What's over-the-horizon capability, and is it enough?
No, it's not. It's not optimum. It's what we're left with. The over-horizon means I've got a standoff distance, and I can see over the horizon with my technology to see what you're doing. The problem is you trade space for time. If I see a target, I need more time to get to it because I'm further away.
General, really appreciate your time, your thoughts on a Friday evening, and I know over the next couple of weeks we're going to be relying on your expertise more. We appreciate it.
Please keep those young national treasures in your thoughts and prayers. They go for us.
Yeah, we owe them a debt of gratitude for sure. We saw ISIS rise from the American withdrawal in Iraq about 7 years ago, requiring U.S. troops to go back in under President Obama. Yesterday, one of Mr. Obama's defense secretaries said the exact same thing will happen with leaving Afghanistan. ISIS-K is going to require U.S. military intervention.
We're going to have to go back in to get ISIS. We're probably going to have to go back in when al-Qaeda resurrects itself, as they will with this Taliban. They gave safe haven to al-Qaeda before. They'll probably do it again. So, yeah, I understand that we're trying to get our troops out of there, but the bottom line is we can leave a battlefield, but we can't leave the war on terrorism, which still is a threat to our security.
Leah Gabriel ran human intelligence networks in Afghanistan after flying missions as a U.S. Navy F-18 pilot. Most recently, she was the U.S. Special Envoy for Global Engagement. Leah, appreciate you being with us as always. You served in Afghanistan and above it. U.S. military is gone. Are we going to have any idea what's going on with the Taliban in charge?
Well, Leland, I mean, first of all, the Taliban is clearly not, a credible partner in any way. It is absurd to be hearing the conversations that are going on between our government right now and the Taliban, and how there's this reliance on the Taliban for security in this region. But I'll tell you that, in terms of protection of our troops, in terms of having a any sort of hold on Afghanistan writ large, you have to have human networks that you can count on and that you can rely on. And right now, we've created a situation in Afghanistan where those networks of people that we have spent years and years developing, building trust with, they know that they can't count on the U.S. to help them and to protect them, as was promised. So right now, I think that it's anyone's guess as to what the future looks like in Afghanistan.
It's anyone's guess, which means it's pretty easy to underestimate the threat of a group that's coming up. It reminded me of President Obama during the rise of ISIS in the very beginning. He said the analogy we use around here sometimes, and I think it's accurate, is if a JV team puts on Lakers uniforms, that doesn't make them Kobe Bryant. With the U.S. withdrawing, how do we get human intelligence networks inside of Afghanistan to trust us?
Well, you have to have people on the ground to run human intelligence networks in the first place. And when you look at the threat in a place like Afghanistan, those relationships are critical. It's critical to be able to have conversations face to face with people, for one thing, because to run an effective human network, they have to be able to trust you. They have to be able to meet with you in a way that is secure. And so you have to be able to be on the ground to have those relationships and to build capabilities. You know, one of the things that you can do when you have human sources on the ground is you can build secret chains of logistics support, for example, ways to get people in and out, ways to get people moving across a country. And if you don't have those relationships, then you just can't do it. I think one of the things that's really important for people to understand about Afghanistan and the people there are that, you know, they're not like Americans. So oftentimes we try to look through the lens of being an American to understand. But these people, their motivations are going to change day by day. Their motivations are ultimately going to be their basic needs for their lives and their families' lives. How can they protect themselves and how can they protect their future? So if they can't count on having reliable partners and people that will provide some sort of protection, they're not going to put their lives at risk in order to do the bidding of the U.S. government and do the bidding of the U.S. In these positions. So I think that right now the situation, as everyone is seeing, is really a terrible situation. It's just pure damage control.
We have some pictures from back when you were in Afghanistan working on the ground that we'll put up right now. But what I'm interested in from this is so often we're hearing about the need to get the American translators out or else they will be killed by the Taliban, the American partners. I'm sure some of the people that you worked with you're hearing from as well. But looking forward, the rest of the world is watching this as well. And I'm wondering how hard it's going to be for our spies in every other country, in Malaysia, in the Philippines, where they're dealing with al-Qaeda, to get people to trust America when they're seeing America abandon the people who helped them.
Yeah, I mean, our word is our bond. So you're hitting just exactly the right point. Those relationships are critical. And even when I go back to being a pilot, you know, when I was flying in Afghanistan, we carried what was called a blood chit, so that if we crashed and we went down and somebody happened to come upon us before the enemy did, we could present that piece of paper that would, if they could read, would explain that if they helped us as an American service member, that they would be rewarded. And we could tear off a little piece of that and give it to them with a code on it, show them the American flag. So even if you ran into somebody on the ground who, you know, was not part of the enemy organization, who was not there to try to kill you and capture you, if you could show them the American flag, they used to understand what that meant. That's something that we do because our word is our bond. And right now, you know, I think that you can't count on anyone trusting that an American flag and a promise from an American means something when it comes to helping an American service member or helping to support the efforts that we have on the ground. So I do think right now American credibility is at stake worldwide. And I think, you know, we as a country have to work hard on trying to rebuild that credibility. And right now, it's just like I said, pure damage control.
Wow. Sad but important analysis, Leah. Thanks.
Absolutely, Leland. Nice to be with you.
Good to be with you. Around 24 Republican members of Congress are now calling on President Biden to resign over his handling of the Afghanistan withdrawal. Some have said he should be impeached. Others have talked about the 25th Amendment. One of the Republicans who have questioned the president's mental health long ago is Texas Congressman and physician Ronnie Jackson. He said he wanted the president to take a cognitive test back in June. Congressman, appreciate you being here. I'm guessing that you don't feel any better about President Biden now than you did back in June.
I don't, Leland. I'm telling you, I've been saying this for a year and a half. I started saying this when he was candidate Biden. I said this man is not cognitively fit to be our head of state, and more importantly, to be our commander-in-chief. And unfortunately, it's playing out on an international stage right now. He is demonstrating that he is not capable of that. He has caused an unmitigated national security disaster, and he's got our own troops killed at this point because of his incompetence and his cognitive inability.
I'm wondering, is this a political policy issue, or is this a medical diagnosis issue?
No, look, this is a medical. I'm not making a medical diagnosis, but I'm saying this is a medical issue. Okay.
Okay.
I mean, you don't have to be a physician at this particular point to notice that there's something wrong with this man. We've had 40 years of tape on him. He's always had some gaps, but this is different. He's confused. He's lost. He's disoriented. He looks frail and weak, and he doesn't know where he's at or what's going on or what he's talking about. And he gets in.
If we table the medical issue for a minute, it's clear, sort of in a bigger picture, you don't think Joe Biden is fit to lead, right? You'd agree with that?
Well, I don't think he's fit to lead because of the cognitive issues that I've been describing for a year and a half now, but he's also demonstrating that he's not fit to lead for other reasons right now. I think there's a variety of reasons why he shouldn't stay in office at this particular point.
So if he leaves office, I have to ask you, the person who comes in is Kamala Harris. Do you think she's a better option?
Well, look, she's not going to be any worse. I promise you that. And so let's get somebody in there that can actually, he's proved that he can't do the job. It's time for him to leave and let somebody else give it a shot. I don't think she's going to be a better option at all, but I don't think she's going to be any worse. He is an unmitigated disaster, and I can't imagine anybody making worse decisions than he is right now. And Leland, I don't even know if he knows what's going on. I think that his team has already decided that he can't cognitively process this information. I don't think he's getting it all.
It's interesting you brought this up, because this is a poll that one of our producers found. Andrew found this. Who is in charge? Only 39% believe President Biden is in charge. 51% think others make the decisions, and 10% are not sure. That seems to sort of jive with what you're saying.
I agree. I think that's true. I think that his own team has decided that there's no use in giving him a lot of the facts and a lot of the information because he can't understand it, he can't process it, and he can't or won't make decisions with it. So I think that they're giving him just enough to keep him going and and feed him a little bit here and there. But I don't think that they're really reading him into everything that's happening. And I don't think that he's the one on the inside that's really making all the decisions. And I think he has a horrible, horrible foreign policy team around him. And we need to get rid of all of them. His national security advisor, his secretary of Defense, and his Secretary of State are all on the chopping block right now, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, maybe as far as you're concerned, Axios is reporting that nobody's going to get tossed, but we'll
you know
see.
what? That wouldn't really surprise me.
Yeah. It wouldn't surprise you if nobody does. Well, yeah, there is that.
Yeah.
Congressman, we appreciate it as always, you being with us, and appreciate your friendship on a personal basis over the years. It's good to see you, sir.
Yes, sir. You too, Leland. Thank you.
Thank you. There's a lot of news out there tonight, but right now we want to just take a minute and talk about the thing that matters most today. Simply what we are learning about the names and a little bit about the lives of the fallen heroes who paid the ultimate sacrifice yesterday in Afghanistan. Here's their pictures that we have so far. Jared Schmitz, Maxton Soviak, Hunter Lopez, Riley McCullum, David Lee Espinosa, Ryan Chernos, and Dagan Page have all been identified. Typically, the Department of Defense waits 24 hours from the time that they've notified the families until telling us the names of those who have died. In other cases, the family members put this out earlier. Page's family member described him as a man with a tough outer shell and a big heart. Understandably, tonight, they say their hearts are broken. Riley McCullum's sister and her brother said he wanted to be a Marine his entire life. She said he made an impact on everyone he met. And the Riverside Sheriff's Association reacted to the death of one of their own. The statement says Corporal Hunter Lopez didn't view being a Marine as a job, but rather a calling. Both of his parents work and serve America in the Riverside Sheriff's Office. As we think about them this weekend, they died doing what Americans do best and have done best since the Republic began, going overseas to save those in harm's way from the most dangerous people in the world. We are all heartbroken, and we are all rightfully grateful.
But what I will say is that it is easy to throw stones or be a critic from the outside. It is harder to be in their arena and make difficult decisions. And the decisions that a commander-in-chief has to make include among difficult options.
Jen Psaki today had to defend the president against harsh criticism from Democrats over his administration's handling of Afghanistan, specifically the withdrawal that has proved to just be a disaster. The White House, though, is doing everything possible to change the conversation. They held a separate COVID task force briefing. Psaki started her briefing talking about COVID, and Afghanistan came up briefly by remarks by President Biden with the Israeli Prime Minister. You see him in the Oval Office screen upper left, but the president did not take any questions. So how does the Biden administration's domestic agenda continue in the wake of the botched U.S. troop withdrawal? Dr. Lauren Wright is an associate research scholar and lecturer in politics and public affairs at Princeton University, joins us now. Dr. Wright, appreciate it. Is this an existential crisis for Biden's domestic agenda?
Sure. I mean, at the very least, it's a disastrous distraction and is certainly taking all hands on deck at the White House. But if you look at Biden's slipping approval ratings, we have to consider all of the factors in the environment at once. And so I don't even think that the slippage in popularity has fully captured what's happening in Afghanistan yet. His approval was already slipping due to the Delta resurgence and the surrounding economic issues. And so, yes, this Afghanistan situation is making it very hard for the White House to focus on other policy commitments, but they were already slipping a little bit and the honeymoon was already over.
Conceivably, this is the time that a strong vice president would help. Latest headline about Kamala Harris. Kamala Harris blocks reporters from Hawaii event amid Kabul firestorm. She was MIA on Afghanistan for about 7 days. Does she just not want to have anything to do with the Afghanistan policy?
Well, she's been forced to comment on it on that trip. And she's been forced to answer to the obvious comparisons to Saigon and other mistakes throughout U.S. history. And so I think what's interesting about Vice President Harris, and I have some new research on this, is that usually vice presidential and presidential approval track almost exactly together. The first lady's typically more popular than both, but Kamala Harris has not been as popular as Biden from the beginning. And so she's less powerful as a positive public-facing surrogate than perhaps other vice presidents have been.
That's fascinating and interesting research. We have right now the Real Clear Politics average, and you're right that the president's approve, disapprove is crossed just in the past couple of days, now more disapprove than approve. But the fact that the vice president is so much less popular is interesting. We're going to have you back next week to talk about that. But I'm interested in sort of how the broader Democratic messaging is going, because in the wake of the bombing yesterday, this is what we heard from Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House. Take a listen.
The unity of women will make change, transform our country. When women succeed, America succeeds.
What should we read into the fact that Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Seth Moulton, sort of these, the list of Democratic leadership is not all up at the White House for a briefing and then coming out in front of the West Wing to say, hey, we're here for the president. We stand behind him 100%.
Well, as you mentioned at the beginning of the segment, Democrats are really upset with the president, too, and that includes Democratic leadership. Many people can disagree whether we should have stayed in Afghanistan or left Afghanistan. Even the former president thought we should leave Afghanistan. But the botched execution and the deaths that have resulted are very hard for Americans, even Democratic leadership, to square. And so I think what's happening with Democrats is, unlike previous administrations, what typically happens is you rally behind your person no matter what. And what typically happens is Americans give presidents a lot of wiggle room, even on foreign policy and national security issues, because there's such a disinformation and information advantage that the president has. But now Democrats that are in power are demanding more answers and more information because there's such widespread agreement that it was so bad. These were a series of missteps.
Yeah. Dr. Wright, good to see you. And as I said, come back next week when I see the research about Kamala Harris. Thank you.
Sure.
All right. So how did the Taliban mislead the West? And more importantly, what do they have planned in the future? Holly McKay looking into that for us when we come back. Roughly 1,000 Americans have about 94 hours from now to get out of Afghanistan. Then the U.S. troops leave. Right now, those are the estimates from the State Department. But again, they're just estimates. The exact number of Americans trapped in that fallen nation remains elusive. And of course, that makes the evacuation all that much more difficult. The White House admitting today they will likely leave Americans behind, which makes this new reporting from journalist Holly McKay even more disturbing. Here's the headline from the inside: how the Taliban misled the West to win the war on terror. The Americans left behind will, of course, be at the hands of the Taliban. And the Taliban did win America's longest war. Holly McKay joins us now from an undisclosed location just on the Afghan border. Holly, good to see you as always. A lot of your article sort of gets into this idea that the Taliban tricked the United States time and time and time and time again. You know, the old thing, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. Why did the U.S. keep believing them?
Yeah, it is very strange, Leland. I think, the Taliban just really played this long game. And right from the very beginning, right from back in 2001, they made no secret of the fact that they were still going to be at it, and they were in really no rush. So I really think what we saw both in 2014, when we announced President Obama announced a big drawdown then, and also now, is really that they were able to just sit out and wait out those dates. And they were very strategic in that. And I think their winning combination was just as much about having tea and talking with leaders and sort of exploiting the corruption that existed within Afghanistan as it was about bombs and bullets. So it really was able to play this double game, not only in a physical sense, but also really psychological operations to really defeat the Afghan army, and in doing so, really just take the United States with it. So they're really the winners out of here, and that's the disturbing part, that we're now having to kind of work with them and trust them despite this really bloody history.
What does that mean for the future? Obviously, U.S. troops are going to leave. What does that mean for the Taliban over the next 5 years? We misread them so badly. What should American intelligence be listening to that you know that they're missing?
I think it's a combination of, we have to look at the partnerships that the Taliban has. We also have to remember there isn't one Taliban. The Taliban is a very fractured, sort of multifaceted organization of different people from different places with different agendas and different backgrounds. So I think the Taliban itself is going to have a lot of trouble actually just reining in its own people or sort of inflicting anything that's from a leadership level of top down. It's just a very fragmented group. So
we keep hearing, though, from the White House all the time that the Taliban and ISIS-K are sworn enemies. Therefore, the Taliban is the ones to deal with, even though ISIS-K just killed 13 American service members. And then this question came from my former colleague, Jennifer Griffin at the Pentagon. Take a listen.
In terms of ISIS-K, how many ISIS-K prisoners were left at Bagram and are believed to have been released from the prison there? And why weren't they removed before the U.S. pulled out to someplace like Gitmo?
Well, I don't know the exact number. Clearly, it's in the thousands when you consider both prisons, because both of them were taken over by the Taliban and emptied. But I couldn't give you a precise figure.
So what I understand from the White House and the Pentagon now is that ISIS and the Taliban are sworn enemies, but when the Taliban took over, they let thousands of ISIS-K prisoners out of jail. Those two statements don't seem to jive.
Right, and it is awfully confusing because at the same time, I've also heard from within Taliban that they were, whilst they were releasing their own people, they were making sure that the ISIS people stayed in jail. So it is very confusing to really understand it. And I know that they killed some of the ISIS leadership. So they may have let go of some of the more lower level. Irrespective of that, generally speaking, the Taliban and ISIS-K are enemies. However, there are always going to be gray areas. And I know, at least in one circumstance where they were working together back in 2017, in that the Taliban was allowing wounded ISIS fighters to kind of go through their area to get medical treatment. So it is hard to know exactly where that relationship stands. But for the most part, the way that I see it is that ISIS is probably going to be a huge problem for the Taliban in the same way that the Taliban tried to undermine the Afghan government previously. So it's kind of history repeating itself, if you will, Leland.
Well, and if history repeats itself, then America could have some real problems considering what's come from Afghanistan. Holly, we're having a little bit of problems with your signal, so we're going to let you go. Have a safe weekend, and we'll talk to you coming up next week, all right?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Keep up the incredible reporting. We're so proud of you. All right. So with thousands of U.S. troops on the ground and the growing threat of more terrorist attacks, the White House says this is the most dangerous period of the withdrawal yet. We want to take you over to the touchscreen to show you exactly why. We're going to start with the city of Kabul. And remember, this is a city about the size of New Orleans. This is where the presidential office is that the Taliban now controls. This is the old U.S. embassy. I say old because everybody's gone. And this is Hamid Karzai International Airport here. Very difficult to defend. We heard earlier from one of the generals, the Air Force likes to have a 10-mile security perimeter around planes taking off and landing. They don't even have a mile. These roads are all controlled by the Taliban. So to try to get out of the airport and go ahead and rescue any Americans who are trapped in Kabul, much less the rest of the country, is very difficult. Where do a lot of those air assets have to come from and the Delta Force members and Navy SEALs? Well, U.S. bases all around the Middle East. This is Afghanistan, so Kabul would be right out about here. There's Americans trapped in other parts of Afghanistan, we understand. These are the closest U.S. staging bases, both in Oman, Qatar, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, and the like. So we really want to get an inside look at exactly what our special forces and the CIA paramilitary organizations are dealing with when they are trying to get people out of Afghanistan that aren't already at the airport. They have to leave the airport, and it's extraordinarily dangerous. Brett Velikovich, former U.S. Army intelligence and special operations officer, served multiple tours in Afghanistan and Iraq. Doug Englund, retired U.S. Army chief warrant officer who took part in the raid that killed Osama bin Laden, has flown over 2,500 helicopter missions throughout Afghanistan doing exactly these kinds of rescues. Gentlemen, we appreciate you both being with us. Brett, we'll start with you because right now we're dealing in large part with threats on the ground. We understand there have been some special operations guys who have left the airport compound. What do they face on a daily basis as the sun comes up in Kabul?
Well, good evening, Leland. I mean, look, this is definitely a lot different mission than when I was deployed over there. We were very much involved in direct action operations where we were hunting down the top tier leadership within Taliban and the Haqqani network and all these affiliated groups. And this has largely now become more of a force protection mission, right? The daily life for soldiers on the ground in Kabul is harsh. Each day brings new risks. It brings new challenges. The longer they remain, the less troops that are there, the less support that they get, and the more dangerous it becomes as each day is another day for groups like ISIS-K to coordinate attacks. And they are under constant threat of attack from the Taliban and ISIS and a multitude of terrorist groups that are receiving, showing these threats that they face in Kabul. And before these attacks, there were a lot of rumors that groups like ISIS already tried to breach the perimeter in Kabul a couple times. And these soldiers know that. And they know that there are credible threats. And every single day, they're out there, fighting for us, and they know they'll likely be hit. But
obviously when they leave, when they go outside the wire, it gets a lot worse. Doug, I won't make you say it. We understand some of your former colleagues are over there flying the rescue missions, have already flown some. What are they going through right now as the sun comes up, knowing that they're going to have to probably tonight go out and try to find some Americans and bring them back in? What are those missions like? What are the dangers?
Leland, and good evening. And I appreciate this time to kind of put some some context to this. It's just the opposite of what happened 19 years and 10 months ago when we were first entering Afghanistan. You didn't know who the threat was. You didn't know where it was. It was everywhere. Now it's a little bit different. The threat that you see all around when the air crews fly or when the ground forces are leaving on a mounted patrol, if military operations are requiring for troops to leave the wire outside of Kabul to rescue American citizens or other SIVs, the challenge they have is positive identification. You don't know where the threat is because it is no longer, it's changing by the minute. And what I mean by that, these are surge operations. They are ready to go. It's such a short area, short flights, could be long flights depending on where the American citizens are at. You just don't know what the mission is until you get it on your lap and then you are out the door. And then before you know it, then you're outside the wire and you have no idea where the enemy's at because they all look the same, whether it be day or night. And now there's a lot of U.S. equipment that's on the ground to help it actually hinders the positive identification.
When we
So
say
you
the
have
U.S.
crew
equipment,
members-
this is equipment that the Taliban has captured from the Afghan army that we gave them. You bring us to this. Take a listen to what the Taliban now has.
The Taliban now has access to over $85 billion worth of American military equipment. That includes 75,000 vehicles, over 200 airplanes and helicopters, over 600,000 small arms and light weapons. The Taliban now has more Black Hawk helicopters than 85% of the countries in the world.
In speaking of the Black Hawk helicopters, we understand the Taliban took at least one of them for a spin around Kandahar airport. This is video of that. They haven't figured out, I guess, how to fly it yet or haven't videotaped it. Doug, I'm interested, can that Black Hawk do things, maybe you can't talk about it, but can it do things that you would be concerned if the Taliban figured out what it could do?
Not necessarily, because military and foreign military sales is very good at giving the right amount of equipment for the right customer, the right country. So the U.S. military and through direct commercial sales or foreign military sales, they're only going to give a certain amount of equipment that has certain capability. So looking beyond, that kind of threat and looking beyond why they have so much of equipment and where things have folded out, it just poses a risk to now the forces on our ground. So as we continue towards a retrograde or start reducing forces, those that are at risk will be the lower numbers as troops start pulling out. So you can count on the military to be leaving the most capable forces on the ground to be the last forces on the ground.
That makes sense.
So that's the sort of vulnerability. And so,
that would
so
probably
you want
be
the most capable and the most trained.
Real quick, that'd probably be some of the Delta Force guys at Brett's old unit. Real quick, Brett, that list of weapons that we just heard about, what scares you the most for the guys who are going outside the wire?
What scares me the most, actually, is all the weapons that we don't know much about. I think the U.S. government truly doesn't know what's been left. All right. And I'm worried that a lot of this technology gets sold to the highest bidder. I mean, I don't remember a case really when the Taliban was necessarily hurting for guns. I'll tell you that much. But now they've got access to a pretty state-of-the-art technology. It's become basically a garage sale for a lot of these terrorist groups to go in there and pluck special operations equipment that's been left behind that I'm seeing in some of these videos the Taliban is parading around.
Yeah, we got some of the video, also some of the night vision equipment they have. We understand it's pretty high quality. And also, you just look at a lot of the Taliban guys, and they almost look like U.S. Special Forces because they've captured all the equipment. Gentlemen, I wish we could talk all night, but we got to run. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, good to see you both. Will the Afghanistan debacle cement President Biden's legacy, or will he be able to recover? That discussion and how he might do it next. '20 was tough, and 2021 that we all hoped was going to be so much better is pretty difficult as well. So now 16 years since Hurricane Katrina, we have Hurricane Ida tracking just up north here to make landfall not far from Louisiana as a Category 4 storm. So things always look better in the morning, my dad says. For those on the Gulf Coast, they'll have to wait a week or so. Prime's next. We'll see you Monday.